Nithyananda. Dear Noticias, congratulations. Your March 21st headline about KAILASA has set a new standard in journalistic malpractice. You've managed to pack more defamation, misinformation, and colonial prejudice into a single headline than most outlets managed in their entire articles. That takes a special kind of talent. Let's dissect your masterpiece of misinformation, shall we? Your fictitious country hallucination, geography by shouting. You've branded Kailasa as a fictitious country, in all caps, presumably because shouting makes things more true in your journalistic universe. How fascinating. Does this power work for everything? If I type Noticias is a Pulitzer worthy in all caps, does it magically become a reality? The Montevideo Convention of 1933, apparently not included in your all caps journalism curriculum, explicitly states that the political existence of the state is independent of recognition by other states. That's not our opinion, that's binding international law. But why? Why let legal frameworks interfere with all caps reality? Kailasa isn't a new invention, it's the revival of 3 ancient Hindu sovereign states and 17 ecclesiastical institutions with documented unbroken succession spanning thousands of years. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nithyananda Parameswaram, is the 203rd sovereign emperor of the historical Surya Vamsha lineage. 203rd. Let that sink in. Our lineage was establishing diplomatic relations when your conceptual ancestors were still debating whether the earth was flat. But why let several millennia of documented history interfere with your fictitious headline? Would you describe Taiwan as a fictitious? Kosovo? Palestine? The Sovereign Order of Malta maintains diplomatic relations with 112 countries despite having no territory. Would you put them in your all caps fiction section also? Or does your all caps only work for Hindu entities? Your heading further claims Kailasa scammed indigenous peoples, an accusation so legally actionable it could keep courts busy for years. When did Noticias become a judge or a jury or executioner? Is this power granted to all media outlets, or did you receive special dispensation from the universe? Let's be crystal clear. Every agreement Kailasa has entered into with indigenous communities has been duly notarized and protocolized in Bolivia, following Bolivian law to the letter. These agreements are transparent, legally sound, and explicitly state that payments are contingent upon ratification by competent authorities. The clause in the treaty clearly states payment effectuated after ratification by competent authorities. This leaves no room for ambiguity. It guarantees that every transaction is conducted with the full consent and ratification of the respective governments, strictly adhering to international law and honoring national sovereignty. Your accusation of scamming indigenous communities isn't just factually incorrect, it is a colonial narrative that denies indigenous peoples agency and intelligence. The assumption that indigenous leaders can't read contracts or take informed decisions isn't just offensive, it's a continuation of colonial mindset that has marginalized these communities for centuries. Bolivia's constitution explicitly guarantees indigenous nations the right of self-determination. These communities exercise that right by partnering with Kailasa. For you to frame this legitimate exercise of indigenous rights as a scam isn't just inaccurate, it's an attack on constitutional indigenous sovereignty. But why let respect to indigenous autonomy interfere with your defamatory headlines? Territory exchange. Calm down, Noticia. You're hallucinating. Our deals with Bolivian indigenous peoples are conservation partnerships, not land grabs. They are perpetual leases. Perpetual means long-term sustainability, not ownership. Think forest preservation, not colonial deeds. Our treaties explicitly pledge to regularize agreements with Bolivia's government under the law number 465. You left that out because it kills your scary story. We respect indigenous and Bolivian sovereignty. Unlike the extractive vultures you're not mad at, Your description of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism as an international con artist and self-proclaimed Hindu god is perhaps the most legally actionable portion of your hit piece. It's remarkable how you fit so much of defamation into few words, truly an efficiency of libel. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism's lineage traces back 10,000 years through Hinduism's oldest spiritual institutions. He is the 293rd Pontiff of the Shyamalapita Sarvajñapita Madhurayadinam, a position upheld by the Madras High Court. He is the current Acharya Mahamandaleshwar of the ancient Atalakada and has been formally recognized as the head of more than 21 Hindu sovereign kingdoms, the president of the Akhila Bharatiya Akhada Parishad, representing 2.5 million Hindu monks, has declared him the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and Hinduism's greatest protector. But I suppose Noticias knows Hindu traditions better than 2.5 million Hindu monks and multiple high courts. Such expertise. Your self-proclaimed Hindu god label betrays a profound ignorance of Hindu theology. In Hindu tradition, the Guru is revered as divine. The sacred scriptures, the Skanda Puranam, Guru Gita in verse 20 states, "He who is Guru is Shiva himself, so declare the scriptures." Would you call the Pope self-proclaimed because the Catholic doctrine holds him as the Christ's representative on earth? Would you label the Dalai Lama self-proclaimed because Tibetan Buddhism recognizes him as Avalokiteshvara incarnate? Your double standards are showing, and they're not subtle. They're a neon sign in a monastery. Your claim that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is being sought out by Indian justice system is recycling disproven allegations that have been thoroughly debunked in multiple jurisdictions. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has never been convicted of any crime in any jurisdiction, period, full stop. 4 federal and state US courts absolved him of all charges. The false accusers were fined over $6 million and faced imprisonment for their malicious prosecution. Interpol, the actual international law enforcement organization, an actual authority, has rejected any request to issue notices for the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism based on evidence presented to them. But apparently, Noticias has more legal authority than Interpol. What an achievement. 11 medical experts from Ohio, California, Michigan, Canada, and India have conclusively established that the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism's medical condition renders him physically incapable of committing the alleged acts. Your claim of fraud, sexual abuse is a recycling program. It's a defamation without any evidence. Your casual repetition of accusations of fraud, sexual abuse, and other criminal activities without a single shred of evidence isn't just bad journalism, it's potentially libelous. Every allegation has been thoroughly investigated, abjugated, and dismissed in multiple jurisdictions. Let me remind you of some inconvenient facts your investigative team somehow missed. In 2010, a deepfake video was released to incite hatred against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. A false rape case followed with one fascinating detail. The complainant didn't even mention a rape victim. Despite this glaring omission, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was unlawfully detained for 53 days. During those 53 days, police questioned more than 100 people. Despite bribed solicitations for false victims, couldn't find a single victim. The police themselves submitted a memo to the court admitting they had no evidence whatsoever. The case was duplicated in the United States and promptly dismissed. The US courts not only exonerated the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, but imposed substantial fines on the accusers for making false allegations and defamation. The Ohio Federal Court fined the false accuser nearly $500,000. United States District Court of Southern District of Ohio, case number 213 CV 00526. It's there in the records, you can go see. In February 2024, the Ramnagara Indian Court acknowledged the heinous crimes committed by the co-conspirators against the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and KAILASA, charging Lenin Karuppan with rape, extortion, and criminal intimidation. But while at court rulings, legal judgments, and actual evidence interfere with your recycled allegations. Your foreign ministry fixation is a circular reporting at its finest. Your regurgitation of Bolivia's sovereign ministry statement adds nothing new to this discourse. Non-recognition by a particular government doesn't negate existence under international law. If it did, Taiwan wouldn't exist for decades. Kosovo wouldn't exist. Palestine wouldn't exist. The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations doesn't establish criteria for statehood or recognition. It codifies diplomatic privileges and immunities. Your citation of it as the framework for state recognition reveals such a profound misunderstanding of international law that it deserves its own category of wrongness. But actual legal research would require effort, wouldn't it? Much easier to copy-paste government statements without analysis or context. The hidden persecution that you're not revealing, that your headlines are concealing. What you're reporting deliberately obscures is the systematic persecution faced by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism and KAILASA, a fact recognized by international human rights lawyers and organizations worldwide. The massive systematic anti-Hindu media campaign has caused documented harm in over 100,000 instances, including 70 plus assassination attempts on the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, 250 and more actual sexual assaults on monks, nuns, and disciples, 120 false legal cases, 25,000 defamatory articles across more than 50 countries, destruction of heritage properties worth over $27 million. But covering actual persecution doesn't generate clicks like all caps accusations of scammed indigenous people, does it? The bottom line, journalism requires more than just shouting headlines. Noticias, your coverage of KAILASA redefines the concept of irresponsible reporting. Your all caps headlines, unsubstantiated accusations, and recycled disinformation aren't just inadequate, they are potentially libelous. KAILASA will continue to exist and thrive whether you acknowledge us or not. Our treaties will remain valid. Our humanitarian work will continue, and our ancient traditions will endure long after your shouting headlines are forgotten. More than 40 media outlets from 14 countries, including major organizations like the Washington Post, MSNBC, Italy 24, and more, have already removed similar defamatory content and issued apologies after recognizing their errors. They chose integrity. What will you choose? Pure disinformation has contributed to documented harm affecting indigenous communities, both Hindu and Bolivian. This isn't hypothetical damage, it's measurable, actionable, and legally consequential. If you aspire to be more than just another propaganda platform, here's a chance to prove it. Retract, correct, research, and report accurately. Otherwise, prepare to defend your all caps fiction in court, where shouting doesn't override facts, where defamatory accusations require something called evidence. The world is watching, Noticias. Truth doesn't require your validation. Sovereignty doesn't need your all caps approval. And Hindu traditions don't cease to exist because you've misrepresented them. Choose wisely. Your credibility, if it still exists, hangs on the balance. Nithyananda.